I don't know. I don't feel like I'm a good photographer. So so what I do is I just try to capture their image. And I'm not asking to people to pose or anything. I'm just waiting till they get relaxed and then I take the photo. Because I don't like people when it's posing. I like to see people the way they are. And so that's the difference. I think it maybe in my photography, maybe that's what people like about it.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
You know Ethan Shanty. Ethan Shanty is our producer here at Northwards, and he's in the studio with me right now. You know, people listening to this podcast have no idea what we look like.
They would have no idea just by listening to the sounds of our voices that we are two bald men with glasses.
And beards.
And beards. You have fewer tattoos than me, but, you know.
I have far fewer tattoos than you, and you wear that ringer T-shirt in a way that I've never been able to pull off.
Thanks for saying that. I've been looking for a compliment on my ringer T-shirt game. But working in radio, you and I have both gotten this comment before. You are nothing. You don't look anything like you sound like. You're not what I pictured in my head. I never know what to say to that.
I always feel like they're slightly disappointed.
Yeah, or like I can't help but feel like a little insulted by the tone of it. It's like, well, what did you think I looked like? Is that good or bad?
You know, but it's funny because like you and I have been in radio for almost the time since the time we could walk.
Pretty much, yeah.
But you know, I listen to people on the radio, and my mind like conjures up an image of
Absolutely.
what they probably look like, and often it really doesn't have any resemblance to what they actually look like.
Yeah, that happened to me pretty recently. I saw an image of NPR's Scott Simon, and I said, that's what Scott Simon looks like? And I don't know really what I thought, but it wasn't that.
I grew up listening to Scott Simon, and yeah exactly. For example, I think his voice sounds like he has a beard. I don't know why.
I pictured him clean shaven. Anyway, the wonder of our imaginations, right?
But we're talking about this because it's really interesting. The guy I spoke with for this edition of Northwards is a photographer. His name is Paris Escandón, and he is legally blind. And his portrait photos are the subject of the interview that we did. And for everyone he meets, until he can take their picture and blow it up into huge proportions on his computer screen, he really doesn't know what they look like.
Right. He's legally blind, so he's really just seeing shapes and colors, right?
Right, shapes and colors. And, you know, I think the thing about it that really struck me is how the absence of this one sense that we all have or know about is so connected to the other senses that we have.
Right.
And the idea that, you know, when you're listening to a podcast like this one, you might be driving down the street and hopefully there's like one little piece of you that's paying attention to where you're going, but you have an image in your head of what I look like, what you look like, what the interview guest looks like, what they're talking about, and that's all generated by our brain. And
yeah, so much of what our senses are perceiving is really just conjured up in our imaginations.
Yeah, so the photos that Paris Escandón took are of members of the at-risk, the vulnerable population of Brockville, Ontario. You know, at one level, this is probably a stereotype that a lot of us have. We think of things like homelessness and mental illness and
or addiction
as being kind of big city problems.
Right.
And it really strikes you when you encounter them in a place like Brockville, which has like 25,000 people, or a place like Potsdam or Watertown or wherever. And at the same time, what's really interesting about this is that Brockville has these issues, and people on the street, walking down the street, might willingly turn their eyes away from these people, whereas a photographer who literally can't see doesn't approach them with the same kind of preconceived ideas of who these people are and what's happening, because he doesn't physically see them.
Right. Yeah. They're all just shapes. So everyone is on sort of like this level playing field. And like you said, he doesn't have a real good picture of what they look like until he takes that picture. And it, it humanizes these folks for him before he even has a chance to make them the subject of his art. And the thing that I've been thinking about since you brought this guy up is just how wild it is that he didn't get into photography until after he became legally blind.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about photography as a way to, once again, literally see the world around him, because when he blows up the images large enough, he can make out detail. So that's really the only way he has, along with maybe talking with his wife or the people around him about what's out there, the way he has of literally seeing the things. And so at one level, the interview you're about to hear is about how it was that he went about capturing the essence of this vulnerable population in Brockville. But at another level, it's about how this person who is legally blind pursues a visual craft like photography.
And it's so wild to me, as translating into my own experience as a musician. I can't imagine what it would be like if I lost my hearing and I still wanted to compose. There's the famous case of Beethoven, putting his ear to the floor. But still, what a huge hurdle to overcome. And I got to imagine that it would be pretty darn difficult to do this at all, or to even want to pursue that. I would find a way if I lost my hearing, because I've been doing music my whole life, but to get into it after going deaf?
Right, and I think that's the difference there. Beethoven was already a composer before he lost his hearing, and at the same time, this isn't just making lemonade out of lemons. This is
right.
This is learning. This is like writing the recipe for lemonade when life gave him lemons.
Right.
And he's just a remarkable guy. And Paris Escandón's photos are part of this larger exhibition that's on at the Brockville Public Library. It's called Brockville Unseen. He took these portrait photos at the library of these at-risk people around the community, and they accompany artwork by some of the vulnerable community members themselves. Paris Escandón joins us on the line from Brockville. Thanks so much, and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Your photographs are part of a bigger project. Why was being a part of this project so important for you?
Well, in fact, was interesting because it was a library who approached me. The library, it's been already helping people that they unfortunately they have a hard life, or they're living in difficult situations. Some people they suffer with addiction. Some people they live in the street. Some people dealing with mental issues. So for a while, the library here in Brockville has been like a refuge for a lot of these people. We started talking about this project like 2 years ago. And if I remember correctly, 2 years ago, they used to have a group where people used to go and talk about their problems and the situation and receive some kind of help. I think the program right now is not running anymore, but they still offering different services. They goes from health information, from sometimes having I think all Saturdays they have open doors and they offer meals, and others people. I noticed that because being there, this is the first time that I have the chance to see this in person. But being there and spending time in the library, I noticed that some people just go to looking for a refuge. Sometimes people just go and sleep a couple of hours there. I think they feel safe, and then they leave. So definitely people feel safe in there, and the staff know all the people there, and they know their names. So the way they approach me is because as a photographer, I've been here in Brockville for 4 years. So when I arrived, I post in one of the social groups here from Brockville that I was interested in photograph people from Brockville, and because I really like portraits. So I make this post, and then the library contact me. I think they read my biography, and they mentioned that they think they will be great if somebody that also has a disability and also has been dealing with with the system, I suppose, be part of this project. So I thought, whoa, this is great. And especially, because I, I I don't know if everybody has this situation, but well, because I can see sometimes I I I don't know who is who, like I can distinguish like who is in a street situation or not. When I'm walking on the street, I can distinguish. And I hear that there is a lot of issues in Brockville right now with people living in the streets. So for me, I feel like it was a great opportunity to be able to sit with them and photograph them and see them slowly observe them for the first time in my life, right? And I suppose many people has that problem, like when you see somebody like that, you don't want to stop and look at them. We try to pretend that they don't exist. So it for me was really, really interesting experiment, be able to see their faces, their expressions, their clothing, observe them, for a long time and have the chance to work with their images. That's the really interesting part for me.
I imagine. Well, and you mentioned this in passing a bit, but you are legally blind, so you would not. In some ways, it sounds like you might have an advantage in seeing them in kind of a metaphorical way, in a different way than someone who does not have challenges with their sight. That you don't necessarily have the preconceived biases when you might pass somebody. You don't necessarily see the circumstances that other people might see or turn away from.
That's right. And it is interesting because for a while now, it in fact is how I become a photographer. When I lose my sight, I start to take photos of my surroundings in order to see them. I find out that I can take photos, bring them to my computer, and then enlarge them, and I was able to see what was going on around me. So it's interesting that when you can't see faces, it's like you're missing a big chunk of information of people around you. And something interesting that I discovered too is that my brain put faces on people. They're not real. Like I noticed that brain doesn't like to have blank spaces, so fill them with something. I don't know, maybe the shape of your body or your voice brings some memory in my head and then put a face on it. And for me, it's always amazing. Come to my computer and see these photos, and sometimes I don't even recognize people. I was like, oh, I was photographing this person because in my head looks completely different. So yes, I have a hard time recognizing people, and I have a hard time basically because sometimes I feel bad to just staring at people, and I need spend a long time with people in order to start seeing them. I need to be really close and basically invade their personal space. So photography allows me to get close to people and see them, you know, and because I don't know, I don't feel like I'm a good photographer. So so what I do is I just try to capture their image, and I'm not asking to people to pose or anything. I'm just waiting till they get relaxed, and then I take the photo because I don't like people when it's posing. I like to see people the way they are. And so I that's the difference. I think it maybe in my photography, maybe that's what people like about it. That I just try to I don't add filters, and I just want to see the whole thing and not make it prettier for anybody. In reality, I want to see the way they are. So yes, photography it gives me the opportunity to see people in a different way.
It's so interesting. A couple of things that you said really spurred something in my mind. One is that working in radio for as long as I have, that is, we hear that all the time, that people have an image of us in their mind based on our voices. And when they meet someone who they've heard on the radio for years in person, there's inevitably a difference between how their mind has filled that image in and the reality of what they look like. And it's interesting to hear you. I mean, it's interesting to think that that's the way it works for you with everyone.
That's right. That's really interesting what you're saying. I never thought about it, but yes, it's like that. Everybody that I know, I only hear their voices, so I have to put a face on them.
For years, I've apologized when people meet me for not being taller or more handsome, but
I used to have a friend that he's also a radio host, and he says one time I met a producer, and he says, "You have a perfect face for radio."
The other thing that came to mind is this idea of the camera as kind of the icebreaker in a way for you. How did you approach these people? Not literally, but when because I imagine that a lot of the people who you photographed might have been initially reluctant to be seen in this way.
Well, I'm not sure because I was not part of that process. Like I say, the library has been working with a lot of these people and members of the community talking about this project. So basically, when they get there, they pretty much knew what it was all about, because the library staff, they wanted to be pretty sure of people understand what they were doing, what was the purpose of this. I didn't approach them personally, which was great for me because I have a hard time approaching people and asking for a portrait. and they were at the beginning kind of not knowing why we want to take a photo of them. They're like, okay, I understand what you're doing, but why? Why this subject is important? And at the same time, for me, it was a little bit sad to see how they feel like they don't deserve to have the attention. And that was a little bit shocking for me. But after talking with them and explain them that I was legally blind, and that we were, because my wife is always with me and sometimes helps me just to figure out that I'm pointing the camera in the right direction. Because even with cameras, they have great technology these days. Sometimes I need somebody just to be sure that things are in focus or not. Because the way I see it, imagine that you open your eyes under the water. So everything is pretty blurry, but I can distinguish shapes and light and shadow. So that's how I build my composition. But when it comes to focus, I can't. So I think all these elements help people to relax and understanding that I also understand what means try to, well, be a minority and try to deal with the world around you.
What do you hope to present then to the people who see these photographs about these struggles that might be invisible? We might not on the surface know that someone is facing food insecurity or homelessness or addiction or mental illness. How do you hope the photographs in some way reveal something about the people in them?
Well, my whole idea behind this, having people sitting in a chair, I wanted to put them at the same level as the viewer, and imagining that this person is in your living room sitting in front of you, and you have the chance to see them for the first time out of the context of the street, or just move them completely out of the context where we always used to see them, right? And be able to see them as a person. I choose black and white because I love black and white because at least for me allows me to see more details, like details on the skin or the hair or the clothing. And also I wanted to photograph them as if they were somebody famous. Like these kind of photos that we see from important people, politicians, black and white from the 50s, 60s. And I wanted to show them that way too, like make them look more important, or prove or show their importance in the society.
There's a certain dignity that black and white confers.
Yes, yes, that's right. And I didn't want to people get distracted, like for the colors, or maybe if they have, any kind of steams on the clothes or doesn't look too clean or not. I just wanted to see the people and see their faces and see the stories in their wrinkles, in their eyes, in their expressions. So and I think it worked. But for me, the idea was observe them, give the opportunity to the viewer to observe them slowly without being afraid of, oh, I'm stirring somebody, right? And but I didn't want to take these photos like in the streets. I don't want to look like, look, this is a wild animal, like that kind of concept. Sometimes we have about people like, oh, they're completely different from me, so I want to put them like a kind of a documentary point of view. No, I wanted to see them like, yes, they're in your house, and they're just people like you. And part of the exhibition too, part of the idea of the exhibition was let know that sometimes people ended at street for different situations. It's not always their choice. And people for some reason believes that people ended in the street because they take bad decisions or if their choice. And we wanted to show people that anybody can end it in a street situation. So that's why I wanted to show them also almost like a mirror, right? Like a look, you can be that person, or somebody that you love can be that person. So that's the whole idea of humanize these individuals that sometimes we don't even want to think about them. Mhm.
Yeah. I know a couple of the subjects of your photos have died in the time since you
Yes,
shot the portraits, and that seems to speak to the continued need to see the people who are often unseen.
that's right. I was wondering, well, I know for a fact that, for example, if these people they were not part of that project, I will never learn that they passed away. They will not make a difference in my daily life because they don't talk about it. We don't talk about this stuff. Usually people think, okay, yeah, it's another people that lives in the street just died, and that ended in the news. We don't speak about it on the radio. We don't, community don't talk about this stuff, and even sometimes family. It's a little bit a shame of having a family member living in the street. So it's really difficult. There's many layers to this problem, to this social problem. Yeah.
Do you think that
Mhm.
you see, in a metaphorical sense, your community? You say you've lived in Brockville for 4 years now. Do you view your community in a different way for having done this work?
Definitely. Uh, because due to my sight issues, my lack of vision, I don't go out very often, and not walking, especially during the winter, and this allows me to see community members that I never seen before, that I didn't have the chance to speak with them before, and learn a little bit about their stories. And yes, it also gives me a lot of hope because if I'm honest, there's a lot of social groups here in Brockville. I think every town has like a Facebook group when they share things they sell or comments of, and I see a lot of negativity around homeless people. Like the impression that I have is the community was really unsensitive about the problem. And I was really happy to see that there's not everybody is like that. That there is people there that are really working, trying to help people without homes, and they are they are working, trying to help and provide food and bring them services and create conscience. So that was really nice too. That was a really nice surprise.
Well, and it's remarkable that I mean, it must be gratifying that you can play at least some small role in bringing this situation to more people.
Yes, no, it's been quite of a ride. I was not expecting the response. In some point during our first presentation, somebody approached me and told me, in the beginning when I knew that you guys were doing a exhibition featuring these members of the community, I was pretty upset. I thought this is a waste of money and a waste of time, and especially this person told me because I know a couple of the subjects. I'm dealing with them when they are being aggressive or when they're sleeping in the street. And honestly, I don't want to know anything about these people. I have a couple of bad experiences with them. But coming to the exhibition and see them the way you present them has make me change my point of view. Now I have the chance for the first time to see these individuals without being afraid, without feel the rejection, and give me the time to see the struggle in their faces. So I thought that's amazing. that's really good. And I hope more people feel that way.
Was it? There's no. I guess there's no easy way to ask this question. The name of the project is Unseen, and you are someone who literally has lost most of their sight. Was the name of the project at all uncomfortable for you?
No. It's funny. I noticed that a lot of people, it's afraid to even mention that I have some kind of disability. And if I'm honest, I don't know other people with disability, but I always make a lot of jokes about my disability, and I make fun of it because we need to live with it every day. And I don't get offended. And no, I thought was perfect because the truth is at that moment I was not able to see people completely. I knew they were there, but I was not able to see them. I was able to photograph them, and I only met each subject until I get home and I put it in my computer. So I think it's perfect.
I'm glad you think it's perfect because I thought it was perfect too, but then I felt bad for thinking it was perfect.
No, it is perfect. Because people from the library ask me what I think about it. If I didn't feel uncomfortable, I say, do it. That's great. I love it.
Okay. Well, Paris Escandón, it has been wonderful getting to know you a bit, and I really hope we'll get a chance to talk again.
Yes, please. I hope we have the chance to talk again in future projects.
Paris Escandón lives in Brockville. He is legally blind and is both a photographer and also works in video and graphic design. His portrait photographs of some of Brockville's vulnerable population are part of an exhibition called Brockville Unseen, which is on display at the Brockville Public Library through the end of the month. You can see some of these powerful photos, and they really are amazing photographs, and find out more about the exhibit at ncpr.org/northwards. That is all for this edition of the program. Our producer, Ethan Shanty, has the names of the people who bring Northwards to you every week.
Well, thank you very much, Mitch. Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, edited, and produced by station manager Mitch Tyke. I'm Ethan Shanty, and I handle digital production. Doyle Dean is our production manager, Bill Hanel is our digital guy, and Caitlin Kelly handles our social media. Our theme music is by Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. To support this show and find more podcasts, visit ncpr.org. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.